Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
6:07, it's O'Connor and Company. Hey, let's dance. Why not? Coming up at 7:05, Phelim McAleer and Annie McElhaney. They're writers and directors and producers. They've got a new play, October 7th. It's all about October 7th at the Trump Kennedy Center this week. We'll give you the details of it. They're really good at those verbatim productions where they take the real events, the real actual live dialogue, and then convert it into a dramatic piece. They did the Comey testimony, if I remember right, as a dramatic piece. Or no, it was the Mueller report. I think they did something like that. I don't remember. Coming up at 7:35, we'll ask them. She Van Fleet is going to join us. New book, Made in America: The Hidden History of How the U.S. Enabled Communist China and Created Our Greatest Threat. 8:05, Dr. Matthew Spaulding of Hillsdale talk about America, this 250th anniversary. And at 8:35, Maryland delegate Matt Morgan. It's Larry O'Connor with Bethany Mandel. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning. Am I excited about this next segment? Let me tell you.
It's exciting, and you're the perfect person to break this down for us. It's the problem with liberal white women. And before we get into it, I do want to remind everybody that Bethany has a fantastic Substack. She is not a liberal white woman. She is their greatest enemy, in fact, which is a good thing. She fights that good fight at the Mom Wars Substack. The Mom Wars podcast is associated with that Substack. Go check it out. And I'm guessing it was plowing around Substack. Substack, by the way, has gotten like uber woke in the last 6 months, more so than it had been before, I think. But you found this Substack. It's called Are You Okay? By Dr. Lucy McBride. And this is a post all about mental health during this time of great trauma associated with the events in Minneapolis. Please utilize this narrative to break down exactly what's wrong with liberal white women, Bethany Mandel.
So, liberal white women, here's my priors, and this reaffirms my priors. Liberal white women is everything. There's everything wrong in America can be traced back to liberal white women. Okay. So I follow this Substack, which is something that I love about Substack is that it is what you make it. And my Substack is pretty sane, my feed. Mm-hmm. Lucy McBride used to be like a somewhat rational voice on COVID, which is why I followed her a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
But she, as a white woman, has sort of realized that she has to be affirming to a fault. And so she wrote this piece, How to Protect Your Mental Health When the World Feels Like It's Falling Apart. And if our listeners will just, afford me a minute to read it out loud, I think will make it worth it.
Absolutely. Dramatic reading, ladies and gentlemen, from Bethany Mandel.
Over the past weeks, I've heard from numerous patients with similar symptoms: racing hearts, sleepless nights, tight muscles. On Friday, a patient called thinking she had an ear infection, but when I examined her ear, it was clear it was hurting as a result of jaw tension from clenching at night. Why is this happening? Because they can't stop watching the violence unfold in Minneapolis. They're watching trauma happen in real time on their phones on a loop. I feel it too. Nice music. That's good. There is something wrong with you. If you feel this way about something that's happening across the country, which she's I think New York or DC based, like this is happening across the country, there is something wrong with you, and you need to examine that.
Yeah.
And what frustrates me about liberal white women and their affirmers in the mental health field is that they reassure them that they're okay. And so she goes on, these patients are asking themselves...
They say, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong at all. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with not being able to sleep because of something that's happening across the country. Not impacting you, not impacting anyone you know. That is not okay. And you need to examine that. And so she goes on and asks, these patients are asking themselves the same question. Is my response normal or do I need help? Here's the thing. They're asking the wrong question. No. That's the right question. Your instinct to think this is something wrong with me is correct. And I have a theory that, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, humanity faced real, actual trauma all the time. Kids died, husbands died, people like a broken arm could kill you. An ear, I don't know, maybe not an ear infection, but strep throat could kill you. So we have innate in us as a evolutionary response, dealing with trauma. And I think that it's going haywire, especially in liberal white women, because we don't have trauma anymore. There's no trauma. Thank God. We're all in good shape. And I guess our brains have not gotten that message because they're still trauma responsing on things that are not trauma response worthy.
And also, by the way, what about the selective nature of this empathy that they're sharing and the trauma that they're 100%. Feeling? Because they're feeling empathy for, I guess, the families of Renee Good or maybe the family of the unknown criminal illegal immigrant who might get apprehended and deported because they've broken the law and perhaps were suspected of pedophilia or rape or what have you. But they don't feel this trauma for Lake and Riley or for the parents of Lake and Riley.
That's right.
or other victims of the heinous crimes that are perpetrated by the criminal illegal aliens. So the empathy is only focused in the direction that Rachel Maddow or Jen Psaki instruct them where they should focus it. And one wonders if this is true, genuine empathy, or if it's really political rage against people they disagree with that is then manifest in this fake empathy, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not empathy, it's ego. They have decided that they can judge their own worthiness by how much they feel about this. And this is something that really bothers me about mental health professionals. They're really abdicating their duty right now, and there's a lot of ways they're doing that. But one of them is not clearly saying this is you're not a better person for not being able to eat or sleep or what. Like that is not a sign of someone who is a good person. It's just a sign of a person who needs to touch grass.
This is a great point because there is this assumption that they are in some way morally superior. Yeah. Because of the manifestation of the empathy, ego, whatever it is. Because basic understandings of morality have been displaced by this.
They've made an idol out of victimhood and all of those things instead of resilience. And that's something 250 years ago, resilience was the goal. Resilience was how you turn yourself into a hero. Now you turn yourself into a hero by showcasing your suffering and by increasing your own personal suffering. The people who are doing this are trying to make themselves sick with empathy.
Okay, so that you're right. We've identified the problem. We've diagnosed it. Now the question is number one. What damage can this disease do? Because this is a powerful voting bloc, and they do vote, and they are organized, and they get their friends. They shame their friends into joining them, even when their friends don't even think a second time about a political issue. Number one, that's a problem. Number two, how can we fix this? We'll get into that part of the discussion coming up in a moment. What's the matter? What's the problem with these liberal white women?
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
And we continue this conversation. It was spun off of this it's very thoughtful and very interesting read over at Substack by one Dr. Lucy McBride. Are You Okay is the name of the Substack. The answer is no. Short answer, no. The headline, How to Protect Your Health When the World Feels Like It's Falling Apart. It all has to do with people sitting and watching MS Now or their Blue Sky social media feed about the events of Minneapolis. First of all, the danger to the rest of us here is that the aforementioned liberal white women are incredibly powerful politically right now, especially if they're not married or if they don't have children. Demographics and voter turnout and voter patterns suggest that. Should Republican politicians find a way to try to reach them, convince them? Should they write them off? Should just encourage marriage and having children, and the rest will take care of itself? What do you suggest, Bethany? These are your neighbors, after all.
Yeah, literally. Allie Beth Stuckey, I think, does this particularly well. And I think she does it by trying to emphasize to women that they need to be listening to their heads instead of their hearts. And that's not the goal here with liberal white women. But what really bothers me about this tactic is that they're making martyrs. The goal here is to make literal martyrs. They've made them out of Alex Preddy, they've made them out of Renee Good, and they're making them out of millions of American white women who are making themselves sick with worry and empathy and all of these things watching the events in Minneapolis, because they're warping them in such a way that they can't sleep, they can't eat. And one of the things that really frustrated me about this Lucy McBride column on her Substack was she says, get honest about your baseline. Are you eating? Are you sleeping? Are you taking care of your medications? If collective trauma is disrupting these basics, that's your body telling you something. And then she goes on, notice your pattern. Are you catastrophizing, intellectualizing, going numb? None of these is quote unquote wrong. Yes, it is.
That is wrong.
It is wrong.
There's a better way. It doesn't have to be like this.
This is not collective trauma. There is no understanding from people who have never experienced actual trauma the definition of the word. And that's they're inflicting trauma on people who don't need it. You don't need trauma. Just go and live your life and get your Starbucks and be a simple Karen. Take pride in it. It's great.
Well, let me just add to that, because it's funny. We all want to change the world. We all want to be able to get out, and I think social media makes us all feel like if we just get the what. And when I say all of us, I mean every single person, whether you are in the media or not. Having a social media presence makes you feel like you're Rachel Maddow or you're Joe Rogan or you're Ben Shapiro, what have you, and so you're engaging as though you have some responsibility, or that it's your calling or your profession to do that. And the fact of the matter is, especially if you have some level of Judeo-Christian foundation in your worldview, you are called to be a great parent and raise the next generation of holy people who care about society, care about our world. But if you put your focus on that, if everybody put their focus on that, we'd be okay. Yeah. And I say this because one of the most striking things about the events in Minneapolis to me over the last 2 weeks was the news that when Renee Good made that fateful decision that morning to go out and follow ICE around and be a part of this little legion of commandos, blowing whistles, tracking ICE agents, and ultimately blocking the path of their egress in that neighborhood with her SUV, and then trying to get away and pointing that SUV right at the ICE agents that led to her death. Right before she joined the Corps out there, what did she do? She dropped her child off at daycare. She didn't drop the child off at daycare so she could go to work so she could make money to feed her child. She didn't drop her kid at daycare so she could go to school and get an education to better the life of her child. She handed her own child off to strangers at a daycare to raise her child that morning so that she could be a part of this operation, this little commando operation. And that, to me, tells me everything about what's wrong with this, especially from the women's perspective, that she would rather surrender her day-to-day responsibilities as a mother so that she could then engage in these activities that ultimately led to her death. That right there is, I think, the microcosm of everything that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, she decided, and all of these people have decided, that trolling ICE officers and stalking them and harassing them is more important than anything else, including having a job or being with your family
and raising your child.
Yeah, I'm surprised that she even had a child, honestly. Good for her. because most of them don't. But that's supposed to recalibrate your internal sense of priorities. And she didn't seem to have that. She didn't seem to understand, as a parent, I just did, a huge health workup. I went to the dermatologist. I did this. I lost 50 pounds, all because I want to stay alive for my children. Mm-hmm. I want to meet my grandchildren one day.
Yeah.
And she didn't have that sense of like self-preservation for your child. She took her life in her hands and she made a decision that cost her life. And I will never understand that. I will never understand. And
Nope.
The reason is because they've made a religion out of progressivism and liberalism.
Bingo.
And so she died for the cause.
Bingo. My little rant there I just went on began with, if you have some semblance of Judeo-Christian foundation in your life.
You're right.
And she did not, and they do not, and they've displaced it or replaced it with this. And then people end up dead, and people end up traumatized, and people end up writing Substacks about them and telling them they're okay. You should write this yourself. I'm looking forward to your write-up of this at Mom Wars, but I'm glad we were able to explore it here today, Bethany Mandel, at 6:24.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:37. Thank you so much for tuning in here to our morning extravaganza as you face a new day of snow and shoveling, and hopefully you can stay home. Kids don't have to be at school. You probably don't have to be. If you are getting out there, stay safe. Listen to Jamie Whitten every 10 minutes here as we keep you updated. And we got a lot going on here in our country and in our town. At 7:05, we'll speak with the writers and producers of an October 7th play coming to the Trump Kennedy Center this week. Looking forward to that. It's like a documentary theater production. Those things are very cool. At 7:35, local gal make good. G. Van Fleet out of Loudoun County, an outspoken critic of woke policies because she saw them in her own communist China. She's got a new book out about it. 8:05 brings us Dr. Matthew Spalding of Hillsdale. Reflect on the 250th of America. And at 8:35, Maryland delegate Matt Morgan on Governor Moore's redistricting scheme. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with the amazing Bethany Mandel from the Mom Wars podcast. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning. What a pleasure to be here.
Two big developments in the Minneapolis drama. The first came from President Trump, or right as this show was going off the air yesterday, around 8:35, 8:45. President Trump announced that he was sending Tom Homan, the border czar, to Minnesota. He says in his post he's not been involved in that area, but knows and likes many of the people there. Tom is tough but fair and will report directly to me. As all czar, everyone said, "Ooh, that's a sick burn on Kristi Noem." And, well, I mean, maybe, but every czar, when you put these czars in positions, they are basically special advisors to the president on a specific key policy initiative that is important to the president. There is nothing new here. All czars report directly to the president. Czars also, by definition, don't really have much actual power. They have influence. They have, in an advisory capacity, they are incredibly powerful. But Tom Homan can't say, this needs to be done, so get it done. No, he needs to go through the president and the secretary, in this case, Kristi Noem. So that's not an attack on Kristi Noem, although it is a signal, I think, the fact that the president put it out there so openly and specifically said, Tom Homan hasn't been involved in anything in Minneapolis up until now, but now I'm going to get him on the job. Not only is it a vote of confidence in his professionalism, but I think it is a signal that the president is not thrilled with how things have been going, and he wants to bring Homan in.
So, Tom Homan also was the recipient of the 2015 Presidential Rank Award for Distinguished Service because of his work apprehending, investigating, removing criminal aliens and immigration violators.
Who was president
2015.
in 2015? Yeah.
You stole my joke, Larry. I had a joke set up, ready to go.
Go back.
I didn't know that President Trump was so powerful in 2015 that he could award presidential medals when Obama was president. That's incredible. That is a level of fascism that is beyond even what I thought possible from President Trump. Perhaps, I don't know, call me crazy. Maybe I've just seen so many pictures of kids in cages. But I think that immigration enforcement didn't begin in the last couple months with President Trump.
Yeah, well,
perhaps there's been issues with this for decade.
And a terrific joke, by the way. Yeah, well, of course. And you've got, of course, video after video after video from Obama to Biden to Hillary Clinton to Bill Clinton to Chuck Schumer to Nancy Pelosi, all acting like they're tough on the border and tough on immigration, and we got to get these illegal immigrants out of here, and it's all a problem. And yet they didn't do a whole lot about it, certainly not to the level that President Trump has done. Otherwise, he wouldn't have won the election twice, at least. And the fact is they pass those laws and they give those speeches, but they never really thought that the commander-in-chief would actually enforce the laws. Tom Homan is a professional. And if I may, are we witnessing one of those amazing Donald Trump 4D chess moments? Because I saw yesterday liberal legacy media commentators on cable news saying, well, Tom Homan is the grown-up in the room. Tom Homan's the reasonable one. Tom Homan. These are all the people who were calling Tom Homan a jackbooted Nazi thug a year ago and making fun of him and mocking him and deriding him. But has everything in Minneapolis sort of transpired so that in some way, they're going to end up in this middle place, or they think it's a middle place, where it's actually just as, diligent on enforcing these immigration laws as we ever could have wanted. It's just they're now seemingly going along with it as well. I mean, we are seeing plenty of them say, well, of course we want the border secure, and nobody, argues the fact that Trump has done a good job securing the border. Oh, really? Because in the election they weren't saying that. So has he shifted the center ground on this issue, I guess is what I'm saying.
I certainly hope so, that this is 4D chess. It doesn't look like it is. I've actually been very frustrated with with the Trump administration's response on all of these things. There has been, in my opinion, a rush to go after like Renee Good and Alex Preddy instead of going after the circumstances that led to their deaths. I think that it's unwise to make them the people who were killed, the villains. I think that's just a PR blunder.
Yeah.
The situation on the ground that has been created by Democrats is the enemy, but I think that what Trump needs to be doing is, I think he needs to come out himself and say, I'd just like to clarify who it is that we're arresting. Tim Walz is depicting this as just like a blanket sweep of anyone with an accent. But here's the reality. This was a murderer. This was a rapist. This was a gang member. These are the people that we're arresting in Minnesota. And I don't think that there's enough clarity on that. And they're spending their time, going after the deceased here. And I think that's a massive, massive mistake.
Tom Homan is very good at that part of it. And yes, as I said yesterday on the show with regard to the things that they were saying about the people who ended up being the victims of these incidents where they, understandably, got themselves into trouble because they were tangling physically and putting themselves in between ICE and their operations or Border Patrol and their operations. They don't have to go overboard and say they're domestic terrorists and that they planned on massacring. Right. First of all, they don't have that information. But ultimately, more importantly, you're always in a powerful position in political communications when you've got the truth on your side, you've got the law on your side, and you've got the facts on your side. And with regard to this issue, you've got the people on your side because they support your policy. So when you've got all that on your side, stick with that. Stick with the truth. Stick with the facts. Stick with the law, and don't extend yourself and go beyond it. That's where you get into trouble. I completely agree with you. All right, the president made another announcement yesterday, though, having to do with Governor Tim Walz and what appears to be Walz acquiescing on one key component of what the Department of Homeland Security and the Trump administration have been demanding. We'll give you those details coming up in a moment.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
And then yesterday, President Trump put out this statement. Governor Tim Walz called me with the request to work together with respect to Minnesota. Hey, man, can we work together? This is the guy who's been calling them, the Gestapo and Nazis, get the F out of Minnesota. It was a very good call, President Trump says. We seem to be on a similar wavelength. I told Governor Walz that I would have Tom Homan call him, and that what we're looking for are any and all criminals that they have in their possession. The governor very respectfully understood that, and I'll be speaking to him in the near future. In other words, so Tim Walz says, hey, let's work together, pal. And the request that was made was, okay, if you've got anyone in custody who's in the country illegally, hand them over. So we don't have to, you're not releasing them, and we don't have to track them down in the middle of a busy street. That's the whole point. The problem is the sanctuary policies. And so that's, I think, a good development there.
Yeah, I think it's a great development. I wanted to just quickly note that, in the in all of these conversations, Tim Walz stood up and compared the situation in Minnesota to the Holocaust. He compared Anne Frank to this moment. And today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And because we have the wonderful president that we do, we have people who are sitting on the U.S. Holocaust Museum board who are able to cut through the politics in a way that was impossible just a few years ago. And the U.S. Holocaust Museum tweeted yesterday, Anne Frank was targeted and murdered solely because she was Jewish. Leaders making false equivalencies to her experience for political purposes is never acceptable. Despite tensions in Minneapolis, exploiting the Holocaust is deeply offensive, especially as anti-Semitism surges. This was a fantastic message from the Holocaust Museum, and one that I would like to see the president acknowledge as well, because I think it scratches a lot of itches. There's a lot of birds going down with a single stone.
Well said.
It's the rhetoric out of Minneapolis is wild. There's a reason why this is all happening in Minneapolis, by the way. It's not happening anywhere else in the country, and it's because Democrats are fueling it.
That's right. And the fact that Tim Walz's brain, his moral compass, could somehow even allow himself to formulate the statement that what's going on in Minneapolis right now is in some way equated to Anne Frank hiding in an attic in Amsterdam from the SS coming to take her and exterminate her in a death camp is everything that's wrong with the way political dialogue occurs right now in certain quarters of this country. That some things used to be sort of, outside the bounds of normal discourse. And now, well, it's the stuff of national tickets. 6:53.